Welcome to Boring History for Sleep. If you find comfort in the gentle cadence of history, please consider liking and subscribing. And remember to turn on loop, so this soothing journey can repeat. As you settle in, take a moment to dim the lights. Breathe slowly and gently. Adjust your pillow, perhaps tuck a blanket around you, creating a cocoon of warmth and safety. Allow your shoulders to relax. Feel the day melt away. Eoi. Today, we will explore the unremarkable history of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic inventory cataloging. This topic, seemingly mundane, offers a glimpse into the meticulous routines of a civilization that thrived thousands of years ago. Little by little, we will unpack the gentle intricacies of their record-keeping. Imagine, if you will, a scribe in the soft glow of candlelight. Their fingers glide over papyrus, the fibers rough yet welcoming. The scribe meticulously inscribes each hieroglyph, detailing goods, offerings, and the daily lives of the people. Each stroke of the reed pen is slow and careful, a dance of precision and purpose. The hieroglyphs, though ancient and cryptic to our eyes, served a very specific function. Each symbol, each mark, carried meaning. They cataloged grains, livestock, textiles, and sacred items, all meticulously recorded in long scrolls. These scrolls were not just documents, they were lifelines. They told stories of abundance, trade, and the routines of everyday life. Picture the scroll unrolling, revealing lines of elegant symbols, organized with unhurried strides. The inventory was not simply a list, it was a reflection of a society's rhythm. Each entry was taken with care, often measured in units like hekat or deben, slowly, and gently documented for posterity. Now or more. As we drift through this topic, allow your mind to float along with the words. Let the rhythm of the inventory cataloging wash over you, guiding you into a restful state. Remember, this is but a small glimpse into a world where order and routine reigned. Let us begin this journey together, slowly and gently. The tools of the scribe were simple yet essential. A thin reed pen, carefully cut and shaped, would glide across the papyrus surface. The papyrus itself, made from the pith of the papyrus plant, was a delicate material. It was prepared through a meticulous process of slicing, soaking, and pressing. Each sheet was laid out to dry under the warm sun, absorbing the gentle heat. This drying process could take a day, or sometimes longer, depending on the humidity. As the scribe began his work, he would dip the reed pen into a small pot of black ink. This ink was made from soot mixed with water and a binding agent, perhaps gum arabic. The ink flowed smoothly, allowing each stroke to be precise and deliberate. The scribe would often pause, allowing the ink to settle on the papyrus before continuing. Each hieroglyph had its own space, meticulously calculated. The scribe would take great care to maintain consistent spacing, ensuring that each symbol was not too close or too far from its neighbor. This attention to detail was crucial for clarity. The inventory itself would often begin with a title, indicating the nature of the goods being cataloged. Perhaps a simple phrase like "inventory of grain" would precede rows of symbols indicating different types of grains, such as emmer wheat or barley. Each entry was typically followed by a quantitative measure. For instance, a scribe might note 10 hekat of barley, a hekat being a unit of volume used for grain, roughly equivalent to about 4.8 liters. Oh. The scribe would then document the estimated value, often calculated in deben, another ancient unit. One deben represented the weight of a specific quantity of silver, and this measurement was used as a standard for trade. The careful calculation of value helped merchants and officials understand the worth of goods in relation to each other. As the items were recorded, the scribe might refer back to previous scrolls, comparing quantities and values. This practice ensured consistency and accuracy. The scribe's workspace would be organized, with scrolls rolled up and placed neatly in a basket, each one labeled for easy reference. The gentle rustle of papyrus as scrolls were unrolled became a familiar sound within the scribe's chamber. Indeed. During the day, the scribe would often take breaks, sipping water from a clay vessel or nibbling on simple bread. These moments were necessary to clear the mind, to breathe slowly and gently. Before returning to the task at hand, the rhythm of writing was a soothing process, almost meditative in nature. When the inventory was completed, it would be taken to a higher official for review. This official, perhaps a vizier or a lesser priest, would inspect the work, ensuring all details were correct. They would examine the scroll, tracing their fingers over the hieroglyphs, their eyes scanning for errors. The official's role was vital, as mistakes could lead to misunderstandings and disputes over goods and their values. Once approved, the scroll would be stored in a designated area, perhaps in a wooden chest lined with linen, preserving the delicate materials from moisture and pests. Each chest would be labeled with the contents, and the scribe would often create an additional record for the storage location. This method ensured that the vast records were well organized, allowing for swift retrieval when necessary. How? As the day turned to night, the scribe would often work by the soft glow of a lamp filled with oil. The light flickered gently, bathing the room in a warm glow. The soft light illuminated the hieroglyphs, creating shadows that danced across the scrolls. Time would pass slowly, with the rhythmic scratching of the reed pen harmonizing with the quiet of the night. It was not uncommon for scribes to collaborate. In a larger office, several scribes would work side by side, each focusing on different tasks. Some would specialize in inventory, while others might document religious texts or legal matters. The atmosphere was calm, filled with the soft sounds of pens gliding over papyrus and the low murmur of discussion. Often, there would be a designated elder scribe who would oversee the work, guiding the younger scribes and ensuring the quality remained high. The inventory process was not limited to agricultural goods alone. It extended to household items, tools, and even sacred offerings for the temples. Each category required its own attention. A separate scroll detailing specific items like pottery or textiles. The textiles, often made of linen, would be recorded by their color, quality, and length. Measuring these textiles involved the use of a measuring stick, often made of wood with carved notches to indicate lengths. The scribe would lay the fabric flat, carefully measuring and marking the appropriate length. This process was deliberate and required patience, ensuring accuracy in the records. Once recorded, the textiles would be folded and stored neatly, preserved for future trade or use. The careful documentation of these everyday items reflected the values of the society. It was a world where every grain, every piece of cloth, was significant. As the sun rose and set, the life of the scribe remained a cycle of writing, reviewing, and cataloging. The rhythm of this life was steady and reassuring. Each day unfolded with the same tasks, the same tools, and the same gentle commitment to detail. This routine became a comforting pattern, a lullaby of productivity that echoed through the halls of the office. In this world of ancient Egypt, the act of inventory was not merely a bureaucratic task. It was a vital part of the societal fabric. Each scroll told a story, a gentle reminder of the interconnectedness of people, goods, and daily life. As you settle deeper into relaxation, let these thoughts of ancient scribes and their meticulous work envelop you. Allow the gentle rhythm of their lives to guide you into a peaceful state of rest. Picture the soft glow of the oil lamp, the rustling of papyrus, and the diligent strokes of the reed pen. Slowly and gently, drift into a serene sleep, cradled by the whispers of history. Any mind in the quiet corners of the ancient Egyptian scribe's world, tools were simple yet essential. A scribe would begin each day by selecting his reed pen, carefully chosen from the marshy banks of the Nile. The reed was cut at an angle, allowing for a fine point that could glide over the smooth surface of papyrus. Each stroke was measured, deliberate, and filled with purpose. The ink, a deep black mixture made from soot and water, was kept in small pots, often made of clay, to ensure that it remained undisturbed and ready for use. As the day unfolded, the scribe would gather his materials, including sheets of papyrus, each cut to standard sizes, typically around 30 to 40 centimeters in width. These sheets were stored in neat stacks, tied with strings made of flax, ensuring that they were both accessible and organized. The careful arrangement of these supplies mirrored the orderliness of the scribe's thoughts, reflecting a methodical approach to his work. Every morning, the scribe would begin by reviewing the previous day's inventory. This was no hurried task. It involved a careful examination of the scrolls, ensuring that every item recorded was accounted for. He would read each entry slowly, allowing the words to resonate in his mind. Each grain of wheat, every piece of linen, had its own significance, its own place in the ledger of life. Little by little, he would check for accuracy, using his finger to glide over the characters, feeling the texture of the papyrus beneath his touch. In this quiet workspace, the scribe often worked alongside assistants, young apprentices eager to learn the art of writing and catalog. These young scribes would watch intently, absorbing the rhythm of the older scribes' movements. Together, they formed a harmonious team, sharing the responsibilities of writing, checking, and organizing. The apprentices would take turns practicing their own strokes on smaller scraps of papyrus, replicating the intricate symbols of hieroglyphs. The meticulous process of inventory cataloging was not merely about counting items. It involved categorizing them based on their use, size, and value. The scribe would often call upon his knowledge of weights and measurements, ensuring that each item was recorded with precision. He would use small scales made of wood and bronze to weigh goods like grains and spices, marking their quantities clearly on the scrolls. A bundle of flax, for instance, was often noted as weighing 15 deben, a unit that carried weight and value. Prices were also recorded, reflecting the fair trade practices of the time. A sack of barley might be noted as costing 3 deben, while fine linen could reach up to 10 deben. These values were not arbitrary. They were determined by the supply and demand prevalent in the marketplace. The scribe had to be keenly aware of these fluctuations, as his records would assist in future transactions. The afternoons would often blend together in a gentle cadence of inventory checks. The scribe would pause periodically, allowing his mind to rest as he sipped from a clay cup filled with cool water, possibly infused with the essence of mint. This refreshing break was essential, providing a moment of clarity amidst the repetitive tasks. Little by little, the scribe would return to his work, focused on the serenity found in routine and the calmness it brought. In addition to the daily recording of items, there were also moments dedicated to the maintenance of the scrolls themselves. Each scroll, after being filled with written records, was carefully rolled and stored in a wooden box lined with cloth. This attention to detail ensured that the scrolls remained intact and legible for future generations. When a scroll was unrolled, the scribe would take care to do so gently, allowing the soft papyrus to unfold naturally, preserving the delicate fibers. Etiquette was an essential part of the scribe's work environment. When entering the space where scrolls were kept, it was customary to greet colleagues with a soft nod and a gentle smile. This acknowledgement fostered a sense of community, reinforcing bonds of trust and respect. Conversations were often subdued, filled with murmurs about the day's tasks or observations regarding the changing seasons. As the sun moved across the sky, the rhythm of the scribe's work remained unbroken. The afternoon light filtered through the small windows, casting soft shadows on the walls adorned with hieroglyphs. Every hour was marked by the slow passage of time, a reminder of the countless days of work that lay ahead. In preparation for the next day, the scribe would take a moment to reflect on the day's accomplishments. He would gather the completed scrolls, carefully stacking them in order of importance and date. This process was not rushed. Instead, it involved a gentle consideration of what had been recorded. Each item, each transaction, was a thread woven into the fabric of daily life in ancient Egypt. Once the scrolls were neatly organized, the scribe would often take a moment to prepare for the next day's tasks. He would check the levels of ink, ensuring that his clay pots were filled and ready for use. The reed pens would be sharpened, their points refined for the precise strokes required in his work. Little by little, he would create an environment conducive to productivity and peace. As the evening approached, the scribe would slowly gather his belongings. The tools of his trade, the papyrus, ink, and reed pen, were carefully placed into a woven basket. This basket would accompany him home, where additional inventory work might be done. The familiarity of this process was comforting, a rhythm that had become second nature. With each step taken towards home, the day's activities replayed softly in his mind. The inventory of goods, the careful recording of details, and the community he engaged with filled his thoughts. The world outside was quiet as the sun began to set, casting a golden hue across the horizon. As the scribe settled into his evening routine at home, he would often reflect on the significance of his work. Each entry he made contributed to a larger narrative, a continuous scroll of history that would one day be shared with others. Slowly and gently, he would allow himself to relax, cradled by the weight of his day, drifting softly into the embrace of sleep. Hinereia, Adamesei, Essentieniu, Chaos, Power. As the sun dipped below the horizon and twilight embraced the land, the scribe found solace in his evening rituals. The air was filled with a gentle stillness, perfect for reflection and preparation for the tasks ahead. He would pause, take a deep breath, and appreciate the tranquility that enveloped his home. With a soft sigh, he would arrange his tools on a low wooden table, a smooth, polished surface that had been worn down by years of diligent use. The table was adorned with a simple cloth, its fabric slightly faded, yet comforting. The scribe would lay out his papyrus sheets, each one cut to a precise size of approximately 20 by 30 centimeters. This size was favored for ease of handling and storing. He preferred the texture of fresh papyrus, smooth to the touch, with the faint aroma of the Nile still lingering. The papyrus sheets were stacked neatly, their edges aligned, providing a sense of order and readiness. Next, he would carefully uncork the small clay vessel containing his ink. This ink, made from soot mixed with water and the binding agent, was rich and dark, perfect for capturing the fine details of hieroglyphs. I'd say, as he dipped his reed pen into the ink, he noted the way it glistened, the surface reflecting the dim light of the evening. Each stroke he created would have to be deliberate, as it was vital to maintain clarity in the recordings. The scribe would often take a moment to ensure the nib of the pen was finely shaped, trimming it if necessary to achieve the perfect point. This meticulous attention to detail was essential for a clear, legible script. No. Once his tools were prepared, he would begin to review the inventory of goods that needed cataloging. Each item was carefully listed on the papyrus, and he would often recite the names and quantities aloud, allowing the sounds to fill the room with a rhythmic calm. The items ranged from grains and textiles to pottery and tools, each possessing its own unique importance within the community. He recorded the name of the item, followed by the quantity, and sometimes the price, which was often expressed in relation to a standard measure, such as a heket for grains. The heket, a unit of volume equal to approximately 4 liters, allowed for consistency in trade and record keeping. As he wrote, he would visualize the vibrant marketplace, bustling with activity, where these goods were exchanged. Whoa. The scribe took care to detail not only the items, but also their storage locations. Each grain silo, pottery rack, and textile bin had specific identifiers. He might note, for example, 2 heket of barley stored in the north silo, labeled a 3. This methodical approach ensured that everything could be found easily, and it brought him a sense of peace to know that order was maintained. As he continued his work, the scribe would take small breaks, allowing his mind to wander gently. He would breathe deeply, feeling the cool evening air flow through the open window. This was a time for reflection, a time to appreciate the simplicity of his task. The repetition of writing was soothing, a melody of strokes and pauses that lulled him into a state of calm. Andi, tatinide, hor, bamo, seed. After some time, he would pause to organize any completed entries, stacking them carefully in a wooden box that had been crafted from local cedar. This box was sturdy yet elegant, its surface embellished with simple carvings that reflected the hieroglyphs he so diligently recorded. The box served as a repository for his work, a guardian of the records that would one day be referenced by others. The scribe knew that each entry in his inventory scrolls would be a vital part of the larger tapestry of his society. Little by little, he contributed to the understanding of daily life in ancient Egypt. This responsibility weighed lightly on him as he found joy in the process of documenting the ordinary. As he stacked the records, he would often find himself reminiscing about the stories behind the items, how the fine linen had been woven by skilled artisans, or how the pottery was crafted with care by local potters. With the final entries completed for the evening, the scribe would gently close the lid of the box. This simple act signified the end of his labor for the day. He would take a moment to appreciate the quiet, the peaceful stillness that surrounded him. The room was now filled with the faint scent of ink and the comforting presence of his organized records. Before retiring for the night, the scribe would often tidy his workspace. He would wipe the table clean with a damp cloth, ensuring that no ink stains marred its surface. This ritualistic cleaning was not merely practical. It was a way to honor the work he had accomplished. He believed that a clean space invited clarity for the next day's endeavors. In the corner of the room, a small clay oil lamp flickered softly. The warm, gentle glow cast dancing shadows across the walls. The scribe would take a moment to appreciate the light, which had guided him through many evenings of focused labor. Slowly and gently, he would blow out the flame, allowing the darkness to settle in. As he prepared for bed, he would reflect on the day's efforts, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Each measure recorded, each item cataloged, served to enhance the understanding of his community. The rhythms of his life were simple yet profound, a continuation of the legacy of those who had come before him. He would slide beneath a linen sheet, the fabric cool against his skin, and let his head rest upon a soft woven pillow. The scribe would close his eyes and let his mind drift back to the inventory he had worked on. The grains, the textiles, the pottery, all part of a larger world that spun slowly around him. He would breathe in deeply, feeling the gentle rise and fall of his chest. The day's thoughts began to fade, replaced by the tranquil sounds of the night. Little by little, he would allow himself to sink deeper into relaxation, the weight of his responsibilities softening as he focused on the soothing rhythm of his breath. Each breath in was a reminder of the life he contributed to, and each breath out was a release of the day's concerns. The soft sounds of the night outside, the distant call of a night bird, and the gentle rustle of leaves created a lullaby that cradled him to sleep. As he drifted further into slumber, the scribe knew that tomorrow would bring another day of cataloging, another chance to add his mark to the scroll of history. The simplicity of his life, the quietude of his work, wrapped around him like a warm blanket. Little by little, he surrendered to the embrace of sleep, content in the knowledge that he was part of something greater, a tapestry woven from the threads of daily life. As the scribe nestled into his resting place, the rhythm of his breath matched the gentle sway of the world around him. In the quiet of the evening, he thought back to the tools of his trade. The reed pen, crafted with care from the papyrus plant, rested nearby. Its tip, sharpened to a fine point, was perfect for the delicate strokes of hieroglyphs. The scribe remembered how he would dip it into his small pot of ink, a mixture derived from soot and water, creating a rich, dark liquid that flowed smoothly onto the papyrus. Each stroke required precision and patience. The hieroglyphs danced across the surface, telling stories of trade, of harvests, and of offerings to the gods. The scribe followed a methodical routine, taking care to measure the width of each character. He would often use a slender ruler made of wood, guiding his hand and ensuring that every symbol was aligned properly. There was a comfort in these measurements, a soothing predictability that enveloped him. As he cataloged the items, he would often pause to consider the significance of each entry. Grains, for example, were measured in hecat, a unit that represented about 4.5 liters. The scribe would note down the quantities, carefully recording the numbers in his meticulous hand. He found solace in the repetition of writing the same entries, day after day, as it allowed his mind to drift into a gentle rhythm, like the soft lapping of water against the shore of the Nile. He would catalog 2 types of grain, emmer wheat and barley. Emmer wheat, prized for its quality, was often harvested in the summer months. It was measured in bundles, each bundle representing a specific yield from the fields. Barley, on the other hand, held a different significance, often used for brewing and livestock. The scribe would record the differences in price, noting how emmer wheat fetched a higher price during the market days. The marketplace bustled with life. Yet here, in the quiet of the scribe's chamber, the soft scratch of the reed pen on papyrus was a tranquil contrast. In the same breath, the scribe would also note the textiles, fine linens and wool, each carefully categorized. A length of linen was measured in cubits, a traditional unit of length that was the span of a man's forearm, roughly half a meter. The scribe would write down the texture, the color, and the intended use of each cloth. Some were destined for the priests, while others were meant for the common folk. Each entry was a thread in the fabric of society, woven together by the diligence of his hand. When cataloging pottery, the scribe noted the shapes and sizes. The vessels ranged from small jars to large amphorae, used for storing oils and grains. The sizes were recorded in terms of capacity, often in liters, allowing for better understanding of inventory levels. A small jar might hold 1 liter, while an amphora could hold up to 10. The scribe would sketch a small illustration beside his notes, capturing the essence of each piece. The act of drawing felt soothing, as if he were bringing the objects to life through his careful representation. Little by little, he would describe the markings on the pottery, the decorative motifs that signified the artisanship of the makers. Each piece had a story, a history, and as he catalogued them, he felt interconnected with the artisans who shaped them. The intricate designs, often depicting nature or gods, whispered tales of the past. As he immersed himself in this process, he found peace in the simple act of documentation. The scrolls themselves, made from papyrus, were stored in wooden chests, lined with soft cloth to protect them from wear. Each scroll was labeled with care. The scribe understood the importance of a clear and efficient cataloging system. Being able to locate an inventory quickly was essential for any trade, and he took pride in his work. He meticulously arranged the scrolls, ensuring that they were easy to unroll, the papyrus smooth and unfurled. He often imagined the bustling life outside his chamber. He envisioned traders arriving at dawn, their carts laden with goods, their voices mingling with the cries of the market. There was an unspoken etiquette to these exchanges, a rhythm to the haggling and the bartering. The scribe would think of the prices written on the scrolls, reflecting the ebb and flow of the economy. Everything was connected, the grains, the textiles, the pottery, all part of a larger cycle. A marketplace transaction often began with agreeing, a gesture of respect. The sellers would stand tall, their wares displayed proudly, while the buyers would approach with a smile, ready to engage in commerce. Each agreement often culminated in a handshake, sealing the transaction with mutual respect. The scribe took note of these interactions, understanding that he was recording more than just items. He was capturing the essence of social connection. The sun would rise and set, marking the passing of days, but within the scribe's chamber, time felt suspended. He followed a schedule, rising early to greet the dawn, spending hours bent over his scrolls, and then retreating at dusk to rest his weary body. Each day blended into the next, a tapestry of cataloging, measuring, and recording. He often wondered about the future, what stories the scrolls would tell to future generations. Would they understand the significance of the Hecate, or the importance of textiles in trade? The scribe found comfort in this uncertainty, trusting that the mundane details of his work would echo through time. Little by little, he allowed his thoughts to drift away, the weight of history settling softly upon him. As he prepared for slumber, he pictured the scrolls neatly tucked away, the ink drying gently under the warmth of the sun. The memory of the day faded like the last light of dusk, and he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His work, though seemingly small, contributed to the grand library of existence. Each entry was a note in the symphony of life, a gentle reminder of the beauty found in the ordinary. With a final deep breath, the scribe let go of the day. The silence enveloped him, and he embraced the stillness. His heart slowed, matching the serene pace of the world outside. Little by little, he drifted, the soft sounds of the night lulling him into a peaceful sleep. The scrolls, the grains, the textiles, all woven into the fabric of his dreams, cradled him as he surrendered to the gentle embrace of night. Now, as the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting a golden hue across the land, the scribe began his nightly routine. He gathered his tools, ensuring each was in its proper place. The reed pens, finely sharpened, lay beside small pots of black ink made from soot and water. The smooth papyrus sheets, neatly stacked, awaited the soft caress of his hand. Each item was essential, each step deliberate and purposeful, like waves lapping gently at the shore. With the familiar weight of his tools, he settled down, the air fragrant with the scent of drying ink. He took a moment to breathe deeply, the stillness wrapping around him like a gentle blanket. The evening had its own rhythm, a slow dance of shadows as the sun surrendered to the coming night. The scribe felt a calm reassurance, knowing that his meticulous work would carry on, echoing softly in the quiet hours. He began to prepare the papyrus for the next day's entries. Slowly, he measured the length of each sheet, ensuring they were uniform. Each piece would be cut to a precise length of 20 cubits, allowing ample space for his careful notations. The blade glided through the papyrus, cutting cleanly, like a whisper in the stillness. The scribe focused on the smooth, even strokes, letting the rhythm lull him deeper into his thoughts. With the sheets prepared, he aligned them in a neat stack, each one whispering a promise of recorded history. The scribe took a moment to straighten his back, relax his shoulders, and settle deeper into his seat. He was ready for the next step, ready to bring order to the vast cataloging of goods. Always say. In the quiet space, he reached for the first scroll of the day, unfurling it gently. The meticulous entries danced before his eyes, each line a testament to the daily transactions that flowed like the life-giving Nile. He recalled the quantities counted. The hecat, a measure of grain, often recorded at an average of 500 hecat per shipment. This meticulous detail mattered, as it ensured the kingdom was nourished, peaceful, and stable. Each grain described in the scrolls brought forth images of farmers, their hands working the fertile soil, their backs bent under the warmth of the sun. Little by little, he began to write, each stroke of the pen a gentle mark of history. He noted each item carefully, the prices set, the quantities measured. 15 deben of silver for 10 hecat of barley, he wrote softly. The numbers flowed like water, soothing in their simplicity. He breathed deeply, savoring the quietude of his surroundings, allowing the rhythm of his writing to become a lullaby. The hours passed slowly, marked only by the soft scratching of the reed on papyrus and the occasional rustle of the wind outside. The evening was a tapestry of calm, each sound weaving comfort into the fabric of his work. Time felt fluid, stretching ever so gently as he recorded the textiles traded. Linen, dyed in rich blues and golds, each piece a tactile history of craftsmanship. But he penned the details with care. 10 pieces of blue linen, 15 cubits each, he noted. The colors he described were vibrant, filling his mind with images of bustling markets where traders bartered and exchanged. Each entry was a small story, a quiet testament to the lives intertwined in these transactions. As he wrote, he envisioned the weavers at work, their fingers dancing expertly across the looms, creating beauty from simple threads. Our wasn't. As the scrolls began to pile up, he carefully rolled the completed entries, securing them with twine made from the finest papyrus fibers. Each scroll was labeled meticulously, ensuring that it would be easy for future generations to navigate through the sea of information. The labels were simple, yet significant. Grain inventory of year 23 of Pharaoh's reign, he wrote, the title anchoring the contents within. He continued this process methodically, allowing the quiet hum of his surroundings to guide him. Little by little, he finished each scroll, rolling, labeling, and storing them in the cool shade of the storage room. The room was organized, each scroll resting in its designated space, waiting patiently for the day they would be needed again. Dinner nine's val. The scribe took a moment to reflect on the arrangements. Each scroll represented a thread in the tapestry of life, woven together by the hands of many. He paused, allowing himself to feel the satisfaction of order. The shelves, filled with neatly arranged scrolls, offered a sense of peace that enveloped him. He let out a soft breath, feeling the weight of the day begin to lift, like the gentle sigh of the evening breeze. As he continued, he turned his thoughts to the rituals surrounding the cataloging process. The etiquette of trade was paramount, a sacred dance observed by all involved. Each transaction was accompanied by a series of formalities, respectful nods and gestures exchanged between merchants. The scribe recalled the importance of these rituals, as they fostered trust and goodwill. Little by little, he imagined the faces of those merchants, their eyes filled with hope and determination. For each transaction recorded, he noted the date, ensuring accuracy. The calendar, divided into 12 months, with each month further divided into 3 10-day weeks, was a structure he relied upon. He felt comfort in the routine, as the patterns of time gently guided his work. With each passing moment, the scribe allowed his body to relax further into the soft embrace of the evening. His thoughts drifted as he recounted the prices of goods, each one a reflection of the labor and care poured into their production. 20 deben for a sack of lentils, he noted, remembering the farmers who toiled under the sun. The rhythmic motion of his pen on papyrus soothed him, like the gentle sound of water flowing through a canal. He pictured the canals, lined with papyrus plants swaying softly in the breeze. These thoughts cradled him gently as he continued writing, the patterns of trade, the measurements of goods, all blending into a calming cadence. As the evening deepened, the scribe took a moment to stretch, feeling the soft fabric of his linen garments against his skin. He shifted in his seat, allowing the stillness of the room to wash over him. With each breath, he felt the fatigue of the day drift away, melting into the warm air. Little by little, he returned to his scrolls, the ink gliding effortlessly across the surface. He noted the arrival of new shipments, each bringing fresh opportunities for trade and exchange. 200 hecat of wheat, received from the northern fields, he wrote, the words flowing like a gentle stream, soothing and rhythmic. The day's cataloging drew to a close, the scrolls resting peacefully in their alcoves, each one a pocket of history waiting to be unfurled. Little by little, the scribe felt the embrace of night draw nearer, cradling him in its quietude. The soft rustle of the scrolls, the gentle sound of ink drying, became a lullaby that wrapped around him, inviting him to let go. Okay. With the final entry complete, he took a deep breath, allowing himself to feel the warmth of the day dissolve into the soft embrace of night. He felt at peace, knowing that the unremarkable moments of history he recorded would live on, little by little, through the generations. And as he closed his eyes, the gentle rhythm of his breath matched the tranquil pulse of the world around him, guiding him into the serene depths of restful sleep. As the evening deepened, the scribe settled back into his routine, surrounded by the familiar tools of his trade. The gentle flicker of a small oil lamp cast soft shadows upon the papyrus scrolls. Each scroll lay neatly rolled, waiting to be unfurled. The scribe reached for his writing tool, a reed pen trimmed to a fine point. He dipped it into a small dish of black ink, taking care to avoid any excess. The ink was made from finely ground soot, mixed with water and gum arabic. This meticulous preparation ensured a smooth flow, allowing the words to glide effortlessly across the surface of the scroll. Little by little, he began to catalog the day's entries, noting the details with great precision. 100 jars of oil from the southern province he inscribed meticulously. He made sure each stroke of ink was steady and sure, a reflection of the diligence required in his work. Each jar was measured with care, its capacity noted in hecat, a unit that held significance in trade. A single jar, often holding about 5 hecat, would be counted, and then counted again. He paused, allowing himself a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the rhythm of his work settle around him. The scribe's workspace was organized with purpose, each tool in its rightful place. To his left, a small clay pot held a collection of reed pens, each one waiting patiently for its turn. To his right, small containers housed different pigments, including a vibrant yellow ochre and a deep red ochre, used for illustrating the scrolls. The pigments had been ground finely, mixed with water to create a thick paste, ready for use when the need arose. He took a moment to run his fingers over the smooth surface of the pigments, feeling their coolness against his skin. Oh, and spoon. As he continued his work, he considered the importance of proper storage for the scrolls. Each one was carefully rolled and secured with a piece of twine made from flax fibers. The twine, soft yet durable, assured that the scrolls would remain intact for years to come. The scribe understood the value of preserving knowledge. Every scroll was a vessel of information, a whisper of the past waiting to be shared. He gently placed the completed scrolls into a wooden chest, designed specifically for storage. The chest was lined with soft linen to protect the fragile papyrus from wear. Throughout the day, he followed a structured routine, one that had been passed down through generations. Mornings were dedicated to arrivals, cataloging new shipments as they came into the marketplace. This was a time of bustling activity, where merchants exchanged goods, and the air was filled with the sounds of bartering. The scribe would measure and record each item, ensuring accuracy. 500 bundles of flax delivered at dawn, he would note, making sure to reference the name of the merchant, as was customary. This attention to detail honored the partnership between the scribe and the merchants, who depended on his precise accounts. After lunch, when the sun reached its zenith, he would shift his focus to the existing inventory. This was a quieter time, when the heat of the day slowed movement, allowing for contemplation. He would review the records and compare them to the physical stock. This task required patience and concentration as he would check and double-check each entry. 3 vessels of wine used for trade accounted for. He would write. Little by little, he would make the necessary adjustments, his pen moving in a steady rhythm, a lullaby of ink and paper. The afternoons often brought a sense of calm, the gentle warmth of the sun filtering through the windows of his workspace. He would take a moment to enjoy a sip of water from a clay cup, the cool liquid soothing his throat. This brief pause in his work allowed him to gather his thoughts, to breathe deeply once more, and to settle into the peacefulness that enveloped him. In the late afternoon, the scribe would prepare for the arrival of the evening. He would gather a few of the scrolls and wrap them securely, tying them with twine and placing them in a basket made of woven reeds. This was a routine that marked the transition from day to night, a gentle reminder of the cycles of time. Each scroll was a piece of history, a representation of the unremarkable yet vital tasks that shaped the fabric of daily life. As dusk descended, he would often find himself reflecting on the day's work. The soft murmurs of the marketplace would fade, replaced by the whispering winds of the evening. He would light a few more oil lamps, their warm glow illuminating his space, casting flickering shadows that danced across the walls. With every new flicker, a sense of tranquility enveloped the room, and the scribe found comfort in this ritual of preparation. Before closing for the night, he would meticulously review the list of items recorded. 50 pieces of linen, catalogued, he would say softly to himself, allowing the words to settle into his mind. He would then gather the scrolls once more, tucking them into the chest for safekeeping. Little by little, he felt the weight of the day lift as the tasks of cataloging drew to a close. In those final moments of the evening, he would sit quietly, allowing his gaze to drift over the scrolls. Each one was a testament to the labor of the day, filled with the unremarkable details of life. He took a deep breath, feeling the stillness of the room seep into his bones. The soft rustling of the papyrus, the gentle flicker of the lamps, became a soothing symphony that lulled him into a serene state. He would whisper to himself the final notes of the day. 100 jars of honey, received and recorded, letting the words linger in the air. With each breath, he felt himself relax deeper into the present moment, settling into the rhythm of the night. The soft hum of the world outside, the distant calls of evening creatures, embraced him gently. Little by little, he allowed the day to drift away as the scrolls rested in their alcoves. And so, the scribe surrendered to the peace of the evening, the weight of his responsibilities easing away. The world around him quieted, and as he closed his eyes, he could feel the gentle pull of sleep wrapping around him, inviting him into a serene slumber where the unremarkable history he had recorded would continue to breathe through the echoes of time. As the scribe settled into the quiet embrace of night, he began to reflect on the tools of his trade. The reed pens, each sharpened to a fine point, rested neatly in a small wooden holder. Their tips, carefully crafted from the pliable reeds found near the Nile, were essential for inscribing the delicate symbols upon the papyrus. He would often take a moment to choose the perfect pen, feeling its weight in his hand, the smoothness of the reed against his fingers. Each pen had its own characteristics. Some created bold lines, while others offered finer strokes. The scribe understood the importance of precision, as the clarity of each hieroglyph depended on the tool he chose. He would dip the pen into the ink, a blend of soot and water, mixed to just the right consistency, neither too thick nor too thin. The ink would flow effortlessly, gliding across the papyrus as he recorded the details of daily life. He took a moment to inhale deeply, allowing the scent of the ink and the papyrus to fill his senses. The scrolls around him were organized meticulously, each one labeled with a few hieroglyphs that indicated its contents. Some scrolls housed records of grain, others documented the movement of livestock, while many stored the transactions of goods traded in the bustling market. Each scroll was a window into the unremarkable yet essential aspects of life in ancient Egypt. The scribe recalled the weight of the scrolls as he carefully lifted one, feeling the fibers of the papyrus beneath his fingers. He would often measure the length of each scroll, ensuring it was a standard 10 cubits, a length that had been deemed efficient and practical for storage and transport. The scrolls were kept in wooden boxes, lined with soft linen to protect them from the elements. These boxes were arranged in neat rows, each labeled with the scribe's own careful hand. The organization was essential, as retrieving scrolls could take considerable time without a proper system. He understood the value of efficiency in his work, as each moment spent searching could lead to delays in the recording process. In the early hours of the morning, before the sun rose, the scribe would start his day. He would rise gently, wrapping himself in a simple linen garment. The cool air of dawn would greet him, and he would take a moment to stretch, feeling the stiffness of sleep ease from his limbs. After a light breakfast of flatbread and water, he would gather his tools. He would pick up his favorite reed pen and the small ink pot, carefully checking the consistency of the ink before setting off to the Office of Records. The journey through the village was serene. He would walk slowly, admiring the dew-kissed plants along the path. The scents of the morning, mingled with the distant sounds of the river, created a tranquil atmosphere. Upon arriving, he would greet his fellow scribes with a nod. There was an unspoken etiquette among them, a shared understanding of the importance of their work. They would sit at their designated spaces, their own small alcoves filled with papyrus, ink pots, and reed pens. The scribe would unroll the first scroll of the day, feeling the texture beneath his fingers. He would take a moment to breathe deeply, centering himself for the task ahead. The soft flicker of the oil lamps bathed the room in a warm glow, making the papyrus appear almost golden. Each hieroglyph he inscribed was a careful act of devotion to the mundane details of life. He would begin with a date, written in a simple format, marking the day of the month and the season. The seasons were significant, dictating much of the rhythm of life. This particular month was dedicated to the flooding of the Nile, a time when crops would flourish. He would write, in the month of Akhet, and then proceed to detail the transactions of the day. He recorded the number of jars of olive oil received, noting each jar's weight, as accuracy was paramount. The jars themselves were made of clay, with a cylindrical shape, each holding approximately 5 liters. As he wrote, he would repeat the numbers softly to himself. 5 jars of oil, weighed and recorded, allowing the rhythm of his voice to ground him in the moment. Next, he would document the prices of goods traded in the market. The prices fluctuated, influenced by supply and demand. He would jot down figures. 1 sack of grain, 3 deben. The deben being a unit of weight equivalent to about 10 grams. This attention to detail ensured that the records were precise, allowing for future reference. The scribe took great care in ensuring that the hieroglyphs were correctly oriented. A small error could lead to misunderstandings. He would pause, take a breath, and check his work. 200 loaves of bread, he would write, gently guiding his pen. Each loaf recorded, carefully counted, and noted as if preserving a small piece of the day's life. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the warmth would seep into the room. The scribe found a steady rhythm in his work. He would take breaks, often sipping from a small clay cup filled with water, allowing the coolness to refresh him. During these moments, he would glance around at his fellow scribes, each lost in their own world of records and numbers. The air became thick with the scent of papyrus as scrolls were unfurled. The scribe would then write of the animals, the count of goats and sheep, each marked with care. 10 goats, noted. He would breathe softly, letting the words roll from his tongue. He would often reflect on the life these animals represented, the sustenance they provided for families, a cycle of life captured in a few gentle strokes of his pen. Little by little, the hours would pass. He would pause to collect his thoughts, feeling the gentle hum of the world outside. Birds chirped softly, and the distant laughter of children playing could be heard. There was a comfort in the routine, an assurance that each detail mattered. The scribe would write 50 fish, caught and weighed, as the warmth of the day wrapped around him like a soft blanket. The scrolls filled with details, each one contributing to the tapestry of life that surrounded him. As the afternoon light began to fade, he would prepare for the end of the day. The final entries of the day would be made, and with each stroke, he felt a sense of satisfaction. All recorded, all accounted for, he would remind himself, feeling the weight of his day's work settle into his bones. The scrolls would be rolled carefully, tied with twine made from flax, ready for storage. Little by little, the room would grow quieter, the gentle sounds of the evening creeping in as the sun dipped below the horizon. And so, the scribe would begin to close the chapter of his day, feeling the rhythm of sleep beckon gently, inviting him once again into the realm of dreams, where the unremarkable history he had recorded would continue to whisper in the stillness of the night. As the scribe settled into the dimming light, he reached for his tools, each one meticulously arranged on a smooth wooden surface. He would pick up a reed pen, its tip finely shaped, perfect for the delicate strokes required to create the hieroglyphs. The pen, made from a simple reed, had a slight bend, which suited his grip. He would dip it into a small pot of black ink, made from soot and water mixed to a precise consistency. The ink glistened softly in the fading light, reflecting the warmth of the day, and he would take a moment to appreciate its smooth flow. With each stroke of the pen against the papyrus, he would feel a gentle rhythm emerge, one that matched the cadence of his breathing. 20 jars of oil, he would write, followed by 15 measures of barley. Each entry was a whisper of the everyday, a tender acknowledgement of the world around him. The papyrus, with its fibrous texture, would absorb the ink slowly, and he learned to wait just a moment before moving on to the next character. This patience was essential, a part of the process, a part of the ritual. He would often glance to the side where a small jar of ochre sat. This vibrant pigment was used for emphasizing certain entries. When he felt a detail needed to stand out, he would dip his pen into the ochre, creating a soft contrast against the black ink. 3 baskets of figs he would inscribe with ochre, savoring the way the color brightened the scroll, making it a little more lively, a little more significant. The scribe found comfort in the act of writing. The rhythmic motion of his hand, the gentle scraping sound of the reed against the papyrus, created a lullaby of sorts, one that filled the room with a tranquil ambience. Every stroke flowed into the next, forming hieroglyphs that told stories of daily life, commerce, and the passage of time. He would pause occasionally, allowing himself to breathe deeply, feeling the weight of the scrolls around him. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, the scribe would think of the storage of these precious scrolls. He would gather them with care, arranging them in a wooden chest lined with soft linen. This chest, made from sturdy cedar, had intricate carvings along its edges, telling stories of its own. He knew that the scrolls needed to be kept safe, away from moisture and pests, to ensure that the history they contained would endure through the ages. It was customary for the storage of scrolls to be organized. The scribe would gently categorize them by the type of inventory or the season during which the items were recorded. He would place the scrolls of fish, oil, and grain in one section, while those cataloging textiles and pottery would occupy another corner. Each scroll would be tied with a soft twine made from flax, ensuring that any sudden movement would not disturb the delicate contents within. In his mind, he would count the number of scrolls. 1, 2, 3, he would whisper softly, feeling the familiarity of the task wash over him. He would take a moment to appreciate the time spent on each one, how they reflected the efforts of countless hours. The way the ink had soaked into the papyrus, the gentle curves of the hieroglyphs, and the stories they held made him feel connected to the past. As he completed the storage, the scribe would move to the next step in his routine, the careful cleaning of his tools. He would take the reed pen and dip it into a shallow basin of water. The water, cool yet soothing, would wash away the remnants of ink, leaving the pen ready for another day's work. He would run his fingers along the edge of the pen, ensuring that it remained in perfect condition. This was part of the etiquette of being a scribe. The tools must be treated with respect, as they were extensions of himself. Next, he would gently wipe the ink pot with a cloth made from soft linen. The cloth was not too harsh against the clay, and he would move in slow circles, removing any dried ink that had settled on the rim. It was a simple task, yet it brought him a sense of calm, knowing that everything needed to be perfect for the next day. Clean and ready, he would remind himself, feeling the satisfaction of completing yet another small task. His evening routine would begin to wind down, but there was still one final task to perform. He would take a moment to review his notes. The scrolls would be lined up before him, and he would scan each one, ensuring that every entry was correct, every detail accounted for. 50 fish, caught and weighed, he would murmur softly, the words wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. In this quiet time, he would allow his thoughts to drift gently, feeling the weight of the scrolls resting nearby. They were stories waiting to be told, histories waiting to unfold. The scribe would breathe deeply once more, letting the air fill his lungs, then slowly releasing it, letting go of the day's worries. With the scrolls neatly stored and the tools cleaned, the scribe would find a moment of stillness. He would lean back against the soft cushions of his chair, feeling the gentle pull of fatigue. The evening had wrapped around him like a soft blanket, the world outside growing quieter as stars began to twinkle in the night sky. He would close his eyes for a moment, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat synchronize with the whispering breeze outside. Oh. In this moment, he found peace, a stillness that allowed him to reflect on the simplicity of his tasks. The act of cataloging the inventory of daily life was a sacred rhythm, a dance of letters and numbers that spoke of continuity. And then, he would think softly, little by little, the history of our people is woven into these scrolls. He would breathe deeply again, feeling the weight of his day's work settle comfortably into his bones. The walls of his small room, lined with the stories of his people, stood as silent witnesses to the unremarkable but essential history he preserved. And as the stars twinkled softly outside, he felt the tendrils of sleep beginning to wrap around him, gentle and reassuring, inviting him into the quiet embrace of night. Ah, in the quiet solitude of the scribe's chamber, the tools of his trade lay neatly arranged on a low wooden table. Each item was a familiar presence, a part of the routine that sculpted his day. There was a finely sharpened reed pen, its tip delicately cut to a point, ready to glide across the smooth surface of papyrus. The papyrus itself, made from the pith of the papyrus plant, had been harvested and processed with care. It was a light beige color, offering a perfect canvas for the dark ink that would flow from the pen. Next to the papyrus, a small pot held the ink, made from a mixture of soot and water, bound together with a natural gum. The consistency was just right, neither too thick nor too thin, allowing the scribe to create clean, clear hieroglyphs. He would dip the reed pen into the ink, letting it absorb just the right amount, before bringing it to the surface of the papyrus. Each stroke was deliberate and steady, a practiced movement that had taken years to perfect. As he worked, the scribe would often glance at a wooden ruler, approximately one hand's breadth long. This ruler was marked with precise measurements, aiding him in maintaining uniform spacing between the hieroglyphs. And then he would think, little by little, each line comes to life. The rhythmic scratching of the pen against papyrus created a soothing sound, a gentle whisper that filled the air with a sense of purpose. There was a careful etiquette to the process of cataloging, a series of steps that ensured no detail was overlooked. First, the scribe would write the name of the item being documented, followed by its quantity. For example, he might write 3 jars of oil. Each jar was carefully measured and noted, its weight recorded in units common to his people. A jar might weigh around 2 keb, an ancient unit of measure, approximately equivalent to 2.5 liters. The recording of these details was essential, as it would later assist in the proper distribution of goods. Once the item was documented, the scribe would clean the nib of his pen with a small cloth, ensuring it remained in good condition. This cloth was made from a soft material, perhaps linen, worn from years of gentle use. And then he would reflect. Little by little, each stroke becomes part of a larger story. The process of cataloging was not a hurried one. It required focus and tranquility, a slow and methodical approach that allowed the scribe to immerse himself in his work. Each item had its own story, its own place in the world. The scribe took care to note the source of each item as well. For instance, he might write 2 amphorae from the Nile, indicating where the goods were obtained. This detail was crucial, as it linked the item to the broader tapestry of life in ancient Egypt, a network of trade and sustenance that sustained the community. Throughout the day, the scribe would follow a schedule, rising just after dawn to greet the soft light streaming through the small window. The early morning hours were filled with the stillness of a waking world, the air crisp and cool. He would sit with a cup of cool water, allowing himself a moment to gather his thoughts before the work commenced. And then he would remind himself, little by little, the day unfolds. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the scribe would engage in the cataloging of goods received at the granary. Each day, traders and farmers would arrive, bringing with them their harvests and wares to be recorded. The scribe would greet them with respectful nods, his demeanor calm and steady. It's important, he would think, to honor those who contribute to our lives. When an item was brought forth, such as a sack of grain, the scribe would examine it closely. He would feel the weight of the sack in his hands, assessing its fullness, noting how many keb of grain it contained. 4 sacks of wheat, each weighing 4 keb, he would write down, ensuring that every detail was captured with precision. The act of writing, the flow of ink upon papyrus, was a meditative experience, one that brought him a sense of calm. Wow. As the day wore on, the sun would cast long shadows across the room, the light shifting in a gentle dance. The scribe would pause periodically, stretching his fingers and allowing his mind a moment of respite. He would look out the window, observing the hustle of the marketplace, where the sounds of bartering and laughter drifted in, mingling with the scent of spices and fresh produce. The noise was a soft hum, a reminder of the life that pulsed outside his small chamber. And then he would muse, little by little, the world continues beyond these walls. In the late afternoon, the scribe would take a moment to organize the scrolls he had filled throughout the day. He had a dedicated space for storage, a small wooden chest lined with linen cloth to keep the rolls safe from the elements. Each scroll was carefully rolled and tied with a thin strip of flax, a gentle reminder of the care with which they were created. 2 scrolls for the records of grain, he would say softly to himself, and 1 for the oils. At nightfall, the scribe would light a small oil lamp, its flickering flame casting a warm glow across the room. The light was soft and inviting, illuminating the characters he had etched throughout the day. The shadows danced along the walls, creating a sense of intimacy in the space. It was during these quiet moments that he would reflect on the importance of his work. And then he would think gently. Little by little, we preserve our history. Each scroll held not just words, but the essence of lives lived, the connection of people to their land, their gods, and to one another. The scribe would lean back in his chair, feeling the weight of the day settling in. His eyes grew heavy, the rhythmic motion of his breath matching the gentle flicker of the lamp's flame. And then he would whisper to himself, little by little, the night beckons. He would take a deep breath, inhaling the faint scent of oil and papyrus, allowing his body to relax into the comforting embrace of his chair. The world outside faded away, the stars twinkling softly in the velvety sky. The unremarkable tasks of inventory and cataloging had woven a tapestry of life, a continuous thread connecting the past to the present. And then he would sigh. Little by little, I drift into the quiet of the night. As the scribe settled deeper into the shadows of his humble workspace, he began the meticulous task of organizing his inventory scrolls. Each scroll was a delicate piece of papyrus, carefully prepared from the fibers of the papyrus plant, a plant that grew abundantly along the banks of the Nile. The texture was smooth, yet slightly fibrous, inviting his fingers to glide over the surface. He would select a fresh scroll, measuring its length with a simple wooden ruler. The ruler was handcrafted, each inch marked with precision, ensuring that his measurements were always exact. And then, he would remind himself, little by little, each roll of papyrus becomes a record of our daily lives. He would lay the scroll flat on the writing table, ensuring it was completely smooth. He took his reed pen, a simple tool fashioned from a sturdy piece of reed, and dipped it into the black ink, a mixture of soot and water that he had prepared earlier in the day. The ink glistened softly, a promise of words to come. With a steady hand, he would begin to inscribe the first entries of his inventory. And then he would hum softly. Little by little, the characters form upon the page, each one a mark of significance. The first entries often included the names of the items in the temple's storeroom: jars of oil, baskets of grain, and bolts of linen. He would record the quantities meticulously. For jars of oil, he noted each one carefully: 3 large jars, 4 medium jars, and 5 small jars, all written in neat, flowing hieroglyphs. And then, he would say quietly, little by little, I catalog each item, ensuring nothing is overlooked. Next, he would turn his attention to the grain. He would record the measurements in hecat, a unit of volume used in ancient Egypt. 2 hecat of barley, 3 hecat of emmer wheat, he would inscribe, feeling the rhythm of his pen as it moved across the papyrus. Every stroke was intentional, every measurement exact. And then he would breathe. Little by little, I count and recount. This careful accounting was crucial for the temple's operations. The priests relied on accurate records to maintain their rituals and offerings. The scribe understood the importance of his role. He was the keeper of order in a world that often felt chaotic. And then he would whisper, little by little, I create a balance. As he continued, he would pause occasionally, allowing his eyes to rest. The flickering light from the lamp cast gentle shadows around him, and he would take a moment to breathe deeply. The air was still, carrying the faint aroma of dried papyrus and the soft warmth of the oil lamp. And then, he would remind himself, little by little, I embrace the calm. He would also catalog the linens, noting their colors and textures. 4 lengths of fine linen, pure white, he would write. 2 lengths of coarser linen, dyed blue. The colors were significant, representing purity in the temple rituals. Each entry was a commitment to preserving the memory of the items, their significance woven into the fabric of the scrolls. And then, he would think, little by little, I weave their stories into our history. The scribe would take care to store his scrolls properly, rolling them gently and securing them with fine twine. He kept a special shelf in his workspace, each scroll placed with care, ensuring that they remained safe from moisture and dust. The shelf was made of sturdy wood, worn smooth by years of use. And then he would contemplate. Little by little, I create a sanctuary for our records. It was vital that the scrolls could be accessed easily. He practiced a system of organization, categorizing the scrolls by type and date. Each category would be marked at the top of the scroll, written in a larger, clearer hand. This would facilitate retrieval when needed, especially during the busy seasons of festivals and offerings. And then, the scribe thought, little by little, I create order from chaos. The process was repetitive, yes, but it was this very repetition that grounded him. Each day he would return to this sacred task. He would rise with the sun, its gentle rays streaming through the windows, illuminating the scrolls that awaited his attention. Morning hours were dedicated to inventory, while afternoons were reserved for recording the accounts of the temple's activities. And then, he would remind himself, little by little, I find solace in routine. Time passed slowly in the temple. The scribe would often hear the distant sounds of the priests chanting, their voices woven into the fabric of the day. It was a soothing background hum, a reminder of the purpose behind his work. And then, he would breathe softly. Little by little, I synchronized my heart with their rhythms. Occasionally, other scribes would visit his small workspace, bringing their own scrolls for cataloging. They would sit together, sharing stories of their days, while the rhythmic scratching of their reed pens filled the air. They would discuss the nuances of the hieroglyphs, the best techniques for preparing papyrus, and the latest methods for preserving ink. And then he would reflect, little by little, we build a community around our shared tasks. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the temple, the scribe would unroll a scroll from the shelf. He would review his entries, ensuring that each line was clear, each detail accounted for. This was a time for quiet assurance, a moment to breathe deeply and appreciate the work of the day. And then he would think, little by little, I find peace in my diligence. In these moments, he would allow himself to drift into a gentle reverie. The flickering light of the lamp would cast dancing shadows, and he would let his mind wander through the scrolls he had written. Each entry was a moment in time, preserved forever. And then he would whisper softly, little by little, I become one with the past. Night would settle quietly around him, and he would prepare for rest. Before laying down his head, he would extinguish the lamp, letting the darkness embrace him. With each breath, he would sink deeper into the softness of his bed, letting the day's labor drift away. And then he would surrender. Little by little, I embrace the stillness of night. He would close his eyes, allowing the gentle rhythm of his breathing to guide him into dreams. The scrolls rested securely in their place, a testament to his dedication and care. And then he would whisper into the quiet, little by little, we preserve our history. Die. In the stillness of the night, when the world outside lay silent, the scribe would turn his attention back to his work. He would gather his tools, which rested neatly on a smooth, flat surface. His favorite writing implement was the reed pen, crafted from the finest papyrus reed. He would select a pen with a finely sharpened point, ensuring a steady flow of ink. The ink itself was a mixture of soot and water, blended with a touch of gum from the acacia tree. This would create a consistency that glided smoothly over the papyrus. The papyrus sheets were precious. Each sheet was carefully harvested, dried, and then pressed into flat, thin layers. The scribe would handle each piece with care, measuring them precisely. A standard sheet would measure about 10 inches in width and 20 inches in length. He would lay the papyrus before him, smoothing it out gently, ensuring there were no wrinkles or imperfections. The sound of the reed pen scratching against the papyrus was a soothing rhythm, a sound that often lulled him into a serene focus. As he wrote, he would methodically catalog each item with deliberate care. Each entry required a clear description, detailing not only the item but also its purpose, location, and owner. He would often write in columns, with the left column reserved for the item's name and the right for its description. This orderly method provided a sense of calm, a reassuring structure to his tasks. And then he would think, little by little, I create a tapestry of our lives. He would pause from time to time, allowing himself to reflect on the significance of the work. The act of cataloging was not merely an administrative duty. It was a sacred responsibility. It was a means of preserving the legacy of his people. So, he would breathe slowly, inhaling deeply through his nose and exhaling gently through his mouth. And then he would remind himself, little by little, I connect the past to the present. After completing several entries, he would take a moment to review his work. With careful eyes, he would scan the lines of text, ensuring each character was correctly formed. The hieroglyphs danced on the papyrus, each symbol representing not just a sound, but a concept, a fragment of the shared history. The meticulous nature of his task required him to concentrate fully, for even a single miswritten symbol could lead to confusion. He would then set aside the completed scrolls, placing them gently in a storage basket made of woven palm fronds. The basket was designed to keep the scrolls safe from dust and moisture. It had a lid that fit snugly, ensuring that the delicate papyrus was preserved in pristine condition. He would place the basket in a cool, dark corner of the room, where it would remain undisturbed until needed again. And then, he would think, little by little, I safeguard our knowledge. The process of cataloging was not simply a solitary endeavor. There were others involved in this great undertaking. The scribe would often communicate with the clerks, who were responsible for collecting items to be recorded. These clerks would visit various households, gathering information about goods, livestock, and tools. They would measure and weigh each item, ensuring accuracy. A simple measurement of grain, for example, would involve a scale made of wood and stones, calibrated to ensure precision. In the early hours of the morning, the clerks would bring their findings to the scribe. They would present their reports in a clear and organized manner. Each report might include a list of items with their respective weights, sizes, and values, often expressed in deben, a unit of weight. The scribe would then take this information and translate it into hieroglyphs, capturing the essence of the items in a way that could be understood by all. The value of goods was often determined by their scarcity and demand. A sack of barley might fetch a fair price, while a finely crafted piece of jewelry could command a much higher value. The scribe would take note of these values, allowing for the proper documentation of trade and commerce. And then, he would remind himself, little by little, we weave our economy into the fabric of our history. As the sun began to rise, the light would filter through the small window, casting a warm glow on the papyrus sheets. The scribe would stretch, allowing his body to awaken fully. He would pour himself a cup of cool water from a clay jug, savoring the refreshing taste. It was during these quiet moments that he would reflect on the day ahead, planning his schedule with care. The mornings were often dedicated to cataloging new items, while the afternoons were reserved for reviewing previously written scrolls. He would also set aside time for meetings with the clerks, discussing any discrepancies or updates. Each day was a carefully structured routine designed to maintain order and efficiency. And then, he would think, little by little, I navigate the flow of our daily life. The scribe would also take care to ensure that his workspace remained tidy. He would regularly clean his writing tools, rinsing the reed pens in water and drying them with a soft cloth. The ink pot would be sealed tightly when not in use, preserving its contents for the next writing session. A neat and organized space was essential for maintaining focus and clarity. And then, he would softly remind himself, little by little, I cultivate an environment of serenity. In the evenings, after the day's work was complete, he would often engage in a simple ritual of reflection. He would light a small oil lamp, its flickering flame providing a gentle glow. He would sit quietly, letting his mind wander through the day's achievements. The scrolls were a tangible representation of his efforts, a quiet testament to the importance of his work. As night fell, he would wrap himself in a soft linen cloth, preparing for rest. The world outside would grow quiet, and the air would cool. He would close his eyes, allowing the day to drift away, drawing comfort from the knowledge that he had contributed to the preservation of his culture. And then, he would breathe softly. Little by little, I find solace in the legacy we create. In this way, the scribe continued his work, day after day, creating a scroll of endless bureaucracy. Each entry, each symbol, was a part of a larger story, a story that would echo through time. And then he would whisper into the quiet, "Little by little, we build a bridge to the past." Yeno, Shinda. Every morning, as the sun began to rise over the horizon, the scribe would rise with it. The gentle rays would filter through the narrow windows of his modest workspace, illuminating the scrolls that lined the walls. Each scroll contained detailed entries, carefully recorded in the elegant script of hieroglyphs. The scribe would take a moment to appreciate the simple beauty of his surroundings, a space dedicated to order and clarity. Uh, oh, ah. He would gather his tools, laying them out in a methodical manner. There was the papyrus, a soft and sturdy material made from the pith of the papyrus plant. Each sheet was measured with precision, typically around 30 centimeters in width and varying lengths, depending on the intended use. He preferred to work with sheets that were 2 meters long, allowing ample space for his detailed entries. Persor. Next, he would select his writing instrument. A simple reed pen, sharpened to a fine point, was ideal for inscribing the delicate symbols. He would dip the pen into an ink made from soot and water, mixed to achieve the right consistency. The ink would glide smoothly over the papyrus, the gentle scratching sound a soothing reminder of purposeful work unfolding. Now, the scribe would begin his day by reviewing the previous day's entries, making sure that all information was accurate and neatly aligned. He would gently unroll the scroll, the soft rustling sound inviting him into a familiar rhythm. Each entry was a small story, capturing the essence of daily transactions, inventory counts, and the various offerings made at the temples. As he worked, he would take care to maintain a calm posture, sitting cross-legged on a woven mat. He would breathe deeply, allowing the air to fill his lungs, and then slowly release it. And then he would remind himself, little by little, "I find peace in the routine." The first task of the day often involved cataloging the supplies collected from nearby farms. The scribe would carefully transcribe the quantities and types of goods, such as barley, wheat, or flax. Each entry would specify the weight, typically measured in devon, with 1 devon equating to approximately 91 grams. He would note the total quantities gathered, ensuring that each amount was recorded accurately. He would often pause to reflect on the importance of his work. "Each grain," he would whisper softly, "is a part of a larger whole." This reflection would guide his hand as he wrote, ensuring that he remained diligent and focused. Dine day. Once the goods were cataloged, he would turn his attention to the various artisans and laborers who contributed to the community. Each individual had a unique role, whether they were potters, weavers, or builders. The scribe would record their contributions in a meticulous manner. Each entry might include the name of the artisan, the items they produced, and the quantities. For instance, a potter might create 10 large amphorae, each designed to hold oil or grain. The scribe would note that these amphorae were crafted from local clay, fired in a kiln, and adorned with simple yet elegant designs. And then he would remind himself, little by little we honor their craft. Throughout the day, the scribe would take time to organize his workspace. He would tidy the scrolls, ensuring they were stored in order of importance. The most frequently referenced scrolls were kept within arm's reach, while others were carefully rolled and placed on higher shelves. This method of organization brought him a sense of calm, knowing that he could find any information with ease. The midday sun would cast a warm glow upon the room, and the scribe would stretch his limbs, allowing the gentle light to wash over him. He would take a moment to sip from a small clay cup filled with water, a simple yet essential part of his routine. Staying hydrated was important for maintaining focus, allowing his mind to remain clear as he wrote. After a brief respite, he would return to his work, focusing on the inventories of goods stored in the granaries. Each granary was a large structure, built of mud brick, designed to protect the precious resources within. The scribe would record the contents of each granary, noting the status of the stored goods, whether they were full, partially filled, or in need of replenishment. He would take care to document the location of each granary, often marking them with simple symbols, allowing for ease of reference in the future. The very act of writing these details was meditative, drawing him deeper into a world where order reigned. And then he would breathe softly. Little by little, I create a tapestry of our community. As the sun began to set, the scribe would transition into the final hours of his workday. He would shift his focus to the transactions that took place at the local market. Each market day was a bustling event, where goods were exchanged and stories shared. The scribe would carefully document the trades of the day, noting what had been sold, what had been purchased, and the prices agreed upon. He would write the prices in grains of silver, a common currency, and detail the names of the individuals involved. This record-keeping was essential, as it provided a clear understanding of the flow of goods and services within the community. The scribe understood that these records would not only serve the present, but would also guide future generations. As twilight descended upon the land, the scribe would gather his scrolls, carefully rolling them to protect the delicate papyrus. He would tie them with soft linen cords, ensuring they remained secure. Each scroll, each entry, was an artifact of daily life, a snapshot of a moment in time. Before leaving his workspace, he would take a moment to reflect on the day's accomplishments. The soft glow of the oil lamp would illuminate the room, casting gentle shadows that danced along the walls. And then, he would remind himself, little by little, we weave the fabric of our history. With the day's work complete, the scribe would step outside, taking in the cool evening air. He would listen to the rhythmic sounds of the world around him, the soft rustle of palm fronds, the distant calls of night creatures. These sounds offered a sense of tranquility, a reminder that the world continued to turn even as he rested. He would return to his home, where the familiar scent of dinner would fill the air. After a simple meal, he would prepare for the night ahead. He would wash his hands, the cool water refreshing against his skin, a gentle reminder to cleanse away the day's efforts. Finally, he would settle into his resting space, allowing his body to relax. He would wrap himself in a soft linen cloth, feeling the comforting fabric against his skin. With his eyes closed, he would focus on the rhythmic sound of his breath. And then, he would softly whisper, little by little, I let go of the day. As he drifted into the realm of rest, he knew that tomorrow would bring another cycle of calm, another opportunity to contribute to the scroll of endless bureaucracy. And then, he would repeat, little by little we continue. Nahan, Chu, Pa, Dai. Each day began with a gentle rhythm, as the sun would rise over the horizon, casting a soft glow across the landscape of ancient Egypt. The scribe would awaken early, before the light fully illuminated the world around him. He would take a moment to stretch, feeling the softness of the linen sheets beneath him. He would breathe in deeply, filling his lungs with the fresh morning air, before slowly rising to begin his tasks. Nahal. His first order of business would be to gather his tools, each one carefully selected for its purpose. He would reach for his writing palette, a smooth piece of wood, often crafted from acacia, with a slight indentation to hold the pigments. The pigments, made from natural materials like ochre and charcoal, would be ground fine, ready to bring his words to life. He would mix them with water, achieving the perfect consistency, neither too thick nor too thin, ensuring a smooth flow when applied to the papyrus scrolls. As he prepared to write, he would lay out a fresh piece of papyrus before him. The papyrus, made from the pith of the papyrus plant, had a texture that varied from coarse to smooth, depending on its quality. He would select a piece that felt just right, measuring it carefully with his hands, noting its dimensions. A common size for a scroll could be around 30 centimeters wide, and perhaps up to 10 meters long, allowing for ample space for his meticulous inventory catalog. E. C. Win. With the papyrus ready, the scribe would begin to write, his hand moving with practiced precision. Each symbol, each hieroglyph, would be carefully inscribed, taking into account its size, spacing, and alignment. He would often pause, taking a moment to ensure that each character was both beautiful and legible. There was a soothing quality to this routine, the gentle scratching of the reed pen against the papyrus creating a calming sound, like a soft whisper in the quiet of the early morning. Kishi. To organize the inventory effectively, the scribe would follow a specific method. He would categorize items by type and purpose, using simple hieroglyphs to indicate their classifications. For example, he might use a symbol of an ear of wheat to denote grain, while a small fish symbol would represent food supplies from the Nile. Each category would be separated by spaces, neatly arranged down the scroll. As he worked, he would repeat the names of the items softly to himself, reinforcing their meanings in his mind. Wheat, grain, fish, supplies. When he completed a section of his catalog, he would take a moment to reflect on his progress. The scroll would begin to fill with the careful inventory of resources, the essential commodities that supported the life of his community. Each entry represented a piece of the world around him, a testament to the stability and order that the bureaucracy sought to maintain. And then, little by little, the inventory grows. Every so often, he would take a break from his writing, allowing his eyes to rest. He would gaze out the window, observing the daily life unfolding beyond the walls of his workspace. He would see vendors setting up their stalls, the vibrant colors of fruits and vegetables arranged meticulously, each piece carefully priced, and each vendor calling out to potential customers. The air would carry the scent of fresh produce and baked bread, a reminder of the simple pleasures that life offered. During these moments of rest, he would practice his deep breathing, inhaling slowly through his nose, holding it for a count of 3, and exhaling gently through his mouth. Inhale, hold, exhale. This calming practice would bring him back to focus, clearing his mind, allowing him to return to his work with renewed energy. As the day progressed, the scribe would also keep track of the time. He had learned to monitor the position of the sun, noting its journey across the sky. By midday, he would often pause for a light meal, a simple fare of bread and dates accompanied by cool water from a clay vessel. As he savored each bite, he would allow himself a moment of gratitude for the nourishment that sustained him. Little by little, the day unfolds. After his meal, he would return to his scroll, continuing the process of documenting every item. He would refer to previous records, checking for accuracy and ensuring that nothing was overlooked. The tasks of inventory cataloging were not merely a collection of items, but rather an essential part of the larger system that governed the daily life of the community. The scribe's work would support the farmers, the craftsmen, and the traders, creating a web of interdependence that held society together. To ensure that the scroll remained neat and organized, he would often use a straightedge, a simple tool made from a piece of polished wood, to create straight lines for his writing. This would help maintain a uniform appearance, a crucial aspect of the scroll's readability. The scribe would lightly press the straightedge against the papyrus, drawing faint lines with a sharpened reed, indicating where his hieroglyphs should align. Slowly and gently aligning the lines. As the afternoon waned, he would find himself contemplating the significance of his work. The hieroglyphs were not just symbols. They were a language that conveyed meaning, history, and order. Each stroke represented careful thought and intention, ensuring that the inventory would serve its purpose for years to come. The scribe would nod to himself, feeling a sense of fulfillment in the knowledge that his efforts were part of something greater. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, he would take a moment to clean his workspace. He would gather his tools, carefully rinsing the writing palette and reed pen in a basin of water, allowing the pigments to wash away, returning them to their natural state. This ritual of cleaning was as important as the writing itself, a way to honor the materials that had served him throughout the day. With everything neatly stored away, he would then roll the scroll carefully, ensuring that the hieroglyphs remained protected and intact. He would use a simple piece of twine to secure it, tying a gentle knot, mindful of the fragility of the papyrus. And then, little by little, the scroll is complete. As night enveloped the land, the scribe would reflect on the day's achievements. He would lay the scroll aside, knowing that it would be ready for the next day's review by the overseer. Each entry, each detail, would be scrutinized, ensuring that all records were accurate, vital to the smooth functioning of the community. And he would remind himself, little by little, we contribute to the order of life. With a sense of calm, he would prepare for sleep, taking one last look at the scroll, a testament to the day's labor. He would close his eyes and allow the soothing sounds of the night to wash over him, knowing that tomorrow would bring another cycle of calm, another opportunity to continue the work of cataloging, the endless task of bureaucracy. And then, slowly and gently, we rest. As dawn began to break over the horizon, the scribe would rise, gently stretching his limbs and allowing the warmth of the sun to seep into his bones. He would take a moment to breathe deeply, inhaling the soft, fragrant air that carried whispers of the Nile. Each morning, he would begin his day by organizing his tools, ensuring that everything was in its proper place. Softly, he would gather his materials: a smooth tablet of papyrus, a small palette of natural inks, and a selection of reed pens, each carefully crafted for different purposes. He would arrange the tools on his workspace, a simple wooden table that had seen many days of labor. The papyrus was measured with care, cut into uniform sizes, each one about 30 centimeters long and 20 centimeters wide. And then, little by little, the dimensions bring order, he would think, as he laid the pieces out before him. The ink, a rich blend of carbon black and water, was stirred in its shallow dish, the scribe ensuring that it was smooth and ready for use. A small brush was dipped into the dark liquid, allowing the bristles to soak up just the right amount. Not too much and not too little. Each morning, the scribe would begin by reviewing the scrolls from the previous day. He would examine the entries meticulously, checking for any discrepancies, any missing details. Slowly and gently, the eyes scan each line. He would remind himself as he placed a small weight on the scroll to keep it flat. This weight, made of a smooth stone, was essential for preventing the papyrus from curling in the warmth of the sun. He would take note of any adjustments that needed to be made, recording these on a separate piece of papyrus, allowing him to maintain a clear overview of the tasks ahead. With each mark he made, he would remind himself, little by little, we ensure accuracy. The routine was soothing, rhythmic. After the review, it was time for him to gather new inventory. He would walk to the storage room, a cool, shaded area lined with shelves made of sturdy wood. Here, various goods were stored, each labeled with care. He would pull out a scroll, checking the hieroglyphs that indicated the contents of each container. And then, slowly, the organization reveals itself. He would reflect as he noted the quantities of grain, textiles, and pottery. The weights of the goods were meticulously recorded. Each sack of grain weighed approximately 25 kilograms, while the jars of oil were measured in liter increments. We must keep the measurements precise, he would think, as he wrote down the figures in neat columns. Using a reed pen, he would make small, deliberate strokes, ensuring that each symbol was clear and legible. Once the inventory was cataloged, he would return to his table, placing the new entries beside the previous scrolls. The process of writing would begin anew, each character flowing from his pen in a fluid motion. The scribe knew that each hieroglyph held meaning. Each stroke was significant. And then, little by little, the letters come to life, he would remind himself, as he lost himself in the gentle rhythm of writing. Throughout the day, he would take moments to pause, to breathe, allowing the tranquility of his surroundings to envelop him. He could hear the faint sounds of the city awakening, the soft chatter of vendors setting up their stalls, the distant sounds of waters lapping against the banks of the Nile. Slowly and gently, the world breathes, he thought, allowing the ambient sounds to drift in and out of his consciousness. Every so often, the scribe would be visited by a fellow worker, perhaps another scribe or an overseer. They would discuss the day's tasks, exchanging information about their respective inventories. And then, little by little, we share knowledge, he would say as they would speak softly, ensuring that the atmosphere remained calm and respectful. Each entry in the inventory was not merely a number or a word. It was a part of a larger tapestry. The scribe understood that the organization of these records was vital for trade, for the sustenance of the community. When a shipment of goods arrived from a neighboring region, meticulous notes were recorded. The scribe would note the date, the quantity, and the quality, ensuring that everything was accounted for. Little by little, we build trust, he thought, as he immersed himself in the quiet diligence of his work. As the sun reached its zenith, the warmth of the day would envelop him like a blanket. He would take a moment to sip from his clay cup, filled with cool water, refreshing his senses. And then, slowly, the water revitalizes, he would remind himself as he allowed the liquid to trickle down, feeling the coolness quench his thirst. Oh, Beneni was she, William, while The afternoon would bring with it a sense of deepening calm. The scribe would return to his scrolls, carefully adding new entries, cataloging the items that had been received, while also noting any items that had been distributed. Little by little, we maintain balance, he would think, as he recorded each transaction with precision. He would make sure to use a consistent format, ensuring that all entries were uniform. Each item was followed by its weight, its value, and a small note on its condition. The value was often determined by the marketplace, and the scribe would reference previous records to ensure that he was maintaining accuracy. And then, slowly, we uphold tradition, he would remind himself as he continued to write. Why? As the shadows lengthened, the scribe would begin to prepare for the end of the day. He would carefully roll each scroll, ensuring that the ink was dry and that the hieroglyphs remained intact. Each scroll was tied with twine, with a gentle knot that he crafted with care. Little by little, the day's labor is preserved, he would think, as he placed the scrolls in their designated storage. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the land, the scribe would take a moment to reflect. He would gaze at the neatly arranged scrolls, a testament to his dedication and diligence. And then, slowly, we find peace, he would whisper to himself, as he prepared to settle down for the night. With the soft sounds of the evening creeping in, he would extinguish the small oil lamp that flickered beside him, allowing the darkness to envelop him. He would nestle into his bed, resting his head upon a simple pillow made of woven reeds, as he let out a deep, calming breath. Little by little, we drift into sleep, he would remind himself, as he closed his eyes and allowed the stillness of the night to carry him away into peaceful dreams. As the scribe settled into his routine, he would rise each morning with the soft glow of dawn filtering through the small window of his modest workspace. He would stretch gently, allowing his limbs to awaken slowly. Little by little, the sun rises, he would remind himself, drawing in a deep breath, letting the warmth of the day seep into his thoughts. He would begin by preparing his tools, which were always laid out with care. The reed pens, sharpened at one end, awaited his touch upon a simple wooden table. The ink, a deep, rich black made from soot mixed with water and gum, rested in small pottery bowls. Each item had its place, and the scribe took great comfort in this order. And then, slowly, we prepare, he would murmur as he set to work. The first task of the day was often to check the inventory of materials. He would run his fingers over the neatly stacked papyrus sheets, counting them one by one. Each sheet measured about 20 inches in length and 12 inches in width, perfect for writing. 1, 2, 3, he would count softly, the rhythm of his voice providing a soothing backdrop to his morning. Next, he would take a moment to inspect the storage jars that held the ink. Each jar was labeled with simple hieroglyphs indicating their contents. Little by little, we know what we have, he would say, tracing the symbols with his fingers, feeling the contours of the clay. The jars were kept on a low shelf, within easy reach, and he would ensure they were clean, free of dust, and ready for use. After confirming that all was in order, he would prepare his writing space. The table was wiped clean, and he would lay down a fresh papyrus sheet. The scribe liked to follow a particular routine, as it brought him comfort. And then, gently, "We begin," he would whisper, as he dipped his reed pen into the ink, the dark liquid glistening at the tip. The first strokes on the page were deliberate and careful, each hieroglyph formed with precision, the curves and lines flowing from the tip of the pen. He would often take breaks, pausing to reflect on the meaning of the symbols. Little by little, we create, he would think as the characters began to fill the sheet. Throughout the day, the scribe maintained a steady rhythm, working through the lists of inventory. He would categorize each item meticulously, ensuring that everything was accounted for. There were tools for agriculture, such as plows and sickles, and items for daily life, like baskets and pottery. Each entry was marked with care, and he would often repeat the names aloud as he wrote them. Baskets, pottery, plows, he would recite, the words flowing like a gentle stream from his lips. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the scribe would pause for a brief moment to hydrate. He would take a small clay cup and fill it with water from a nearby jar. The cool liquid was refreshing, and he would savor the moment, letting the tranquility wash over him. And then, slowly, we refresh, he would say, before returning to his work, feeling renewed and ready to continue. The day would stretch on, filled with the sounds of quiet diligence. The gentle scratching of the reed pen on papyrus became a comforting melody, a familiar sound that echoed through the small room. Little by little, we move forward, he would remind himself as he continued to write. Occasionally, he would be interrupted by a fellow scribe or an assistant, seeking guidance or assistance. These moments were brief, often involving a simple exchange of information about supplies or a request for more papyrus sheets. And then, gently, we collaborate, he would think, appreciating the camaraderie that formed over shared tasks. Was Shan. As midday approached, the scribe would take time for a light meal. He would sit on a small woven mat, enjoying simple fare. A piece of bread, perhaps, with a few figs or olives. Little by little, we nourish ourselves, he would say, taking small bites and savoring the flavors. The meal was a time for reflection, allowing him to recharge for the remainder of the day. After the meal, he would return to his writing desk, wiping his hands on a cloth before picking up the reed pen once more. The afternoon sun would cast a warm glow across his workspace, and he would feel the gentle embrace of the light as he continued his tasks. And then, slowly, we resume, he would murmur, feeling the familiar rhythm of his work envelop him. And shower. He would write on, sometimes pausing to stretch his fingers or to adjust his seating position. The small adjustments were part of his routine, allowing him to remain focused and comfortable. Little by little, we find our place, he would think, appreciating the small moments of self-care amidst the bureaucratic flow of inventory cataloging. As the day wore on, the scribe would often refer back to his previous entries. He would check for any discrepancies or errors, ensuring that everything aligned with the scrolls that were stored. And then, gently, we verify. He would remind himself, feeling a sense of satisfaction as he confirmed the accuracy of his records. Time passed, and the shadows began to stretch once more. The scribe understood that another day was coming to a close. He would take a moment to admire the neatly catalogued scrolls, each representing hours of careful work. Little by little, we create a legacy, he would whisper, reflecting on the importance of his role in preserving the history of his people. With the oil lamp again flickering to life, he would get back to tying the scrolls, ensuring they were ready for storage. Each scroll was rolled up with attention, and he would use the same gentle knot, a familiar motion that brought him comfort. And then, slowly, "We protect our work," he would say, feeling the satisfaction of a well-completed task. Oh, Benson. As he arranged the scrolls in their designated place, he took care to keep them organized by category, ensuring that future scribes would find them easily. Little by little, "We build a system," he would reflect, appreciating the foresight that organization provided. The night would fall softly over the land, and the scribe would once more extinguish the oil lamp, allowing the gentle embrace of darkness to envelop him. With a calm heart, he would settle into his bed, resting his head on that simple pillow of woven reeds. And then, slowly, "We drift into dreams," he would whisper, letting the day fade away into the stillness of the night. This. As he let his eyes close, he felt a sense of peace, knowing that each day of cataloging and recording was another step in the unremarkable yet essential history of his people. "Little by little, we find rest," he would remind himself, as the quiet of the night wrapped around him like a soft blanket, ready to carry him into gentle slumber. In our exploration of the unremarkable history of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic inventory cataloging, we gently traversed the meticulous practices and quiet routines of scribes who diligently recorded goods and resources on papyrus scrolls. We learned how each symbol, each meticulous mark, was carefully crafted to ensure accurate record-keeping, reflecting a society deeply invested in order and administration. The soft rustle of papyrus, the gentle stroke of reed pens, and the soothing rhythm of daily life in a land where each detail mattered, created a tapestry of routine that enveloped us in a sense of calm. As you settle into your quiet room, let the soft night embrace you, and feel your body relax into the comfort of your resting space. If you enjoyed this tranquil journey, please remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And as you drift off, do not forget to turn on loop, so the soothing sounds of history can continue to cradle you into sleep. Yo.